Hi, my name is Joe Styler. I'm the product manager at GoDaddy, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Domain Shane Cultra. And I want to give him a couple minutes to introduce himself. He's very well known in the industry, but if you don't know him, I want to let him explain who he is and how he got his start.
Thanks for having me today. Basically, I'm known as Domain Shane. The funny thing is, I tried to start a blog in the domain industry because I used to buy plant names. I have a plant nursery. My family's been in the business since 1865.
Wow.
And so in order to get into the internet side of that business, I started registering plant names. And like most other stories here, people started offering me money for the names I already had, and I expanded on that. And then I'm a talker. I love to talk. I love to write, and I read the other blogs, and I thought there was maybe some room for some humor in this industry. So I started writing a blog to be a little bit funny and inform, and it's kind of come into what it is now. So that's basically what I do.
Yeah, I read a lot of the blogs on a daily basis, but I like your blog. And
there's a lot of stuff you can read. Every day we're inundated with emails, and you got to be entertaining. We all know that it's got to be a little different. So I have a little fun with it. Some of it's tongue in cheek, some of the jokes nobody gets, but I try and keep consistent. So every morning you have something to read, and hopefully they keep coming back.
So I had no idea you were and your family was in the plant business for that long.
I'm in 5th generation. It's I've been doing it since I was a kid, and in this business, I've become very successful in this business, and it's a tough thing to have two things that you're doing well at. So you have to make those choices. So I pretty much work 100 hours a week between the two businesses without trying to make either one suffer, and that's it's hard. It's very difficult. You got to have a family, you got to have friends, you have to have hobbies, and then you have to work, and to balance those. I pride myself more on that balance than in probably anything else.
Yeah, I can understand how hard that is.
Yeah.
And that's really
and
tough.
make it all work. You can do it, but if it doesn't work, it's
right.
no
Exactly.
Good,
so how long have you been involved in the domain industry?
So I started when my daughter was born in 1999. I first started looking for domain names for her, and that was the first time where I realized how it worked. So from 1999 to 2007, I registered the worst domains possible. I understood what you could do. I just didn't understand what you should do.
Right.
So I spent a lot of money on stuff that nobody would ever buy, bitterrate.com, and I bought elizabethbryant.com instead of spending $3,000 on elizabeth.com.
Right.
I thought, well, her middle name's Bryant, you should add that in there.
Right.
So I did nothing, but in 2007, I had another blog that I was writing that was purchased by Break.com and Lionsgate Film, and paid me a good sum of money, and I realized I could buy better names with more money, and I kind of slowly figured out where to spend that money, combining the blog and a little cash. Since 2008, 2009 when I started Domain Shane, I've kind of figured it out. I'm not going to say I figured it out in 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, but in 2015 I think I understand how this whole domain thing works. At least I think I do.
I think that's pretty exciting for somebody who's just starting out, because you hear a lot of stories. There's a lot of the famous domainers, and I think you're up there with them, that got their start very early, and people think, well, I could never be like them. They started so early, that's how they got in. But to know that you started early and were able to adjust and change with things as the market changed.
That's what people have to realize. There is always room for new entries.
Right.
Some people, yes, they got names cheaper, but you're going to be that guy to the next generation, to the next people in. They're going to say, oh, you were able to buy a 5number.com for $500. Those are going to be, it's going to be the same story, and you're going to be that guy. So you can't look back and say they had an advantage, because you have an advantage over the next person up.
One of the big changes I think that's come, besides the Chinese market over the last couple of years, is GTLDs. There's been a lot more TLDs that are coming out. And I wanted to know what your thoughts are on them, and if there's any TLDs that specifically that you really like.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely opportunity. Like anytime you add this percentage of things, there's going to be some losers and there's going to be some winners. And you're going to think what are going to be winners, and you're going to think what are going to be losers, and you're going to be wrong on half of those. I think .xyz from a domain investing standpoint is a huge success. It's given us opportunity to resell names.
Right.
So from the domain investor standpoint, and that's what we're really talking about here, is the domain investors. From the registry side, their success really doesn't impact us. It doesn't do us any good. I didn't make any money if .car sells 3,000 things. Right. It's $3,000. I don't care.
Right.
Good for him. That's great. He can buy me drinks next time. But as far as a domain investor, the ones that are doing the best tend to be top the ones that are in the China market, tend to be the most successful from our standpoint as domain investors. Other than that, it's still a wait to be seen. But I will say there's one consistency among the successful domain investing ones, and that's cheap registration.
Yeah.
There are no new TLDs that are good for us that are over $20, over $30, because we can't afford to hold them.
Right.
So good or bad, depending on what market you're going for a domain investor, that's good to be cheap.
Yeah, I agree. I was having a conversation with somebody and they said, you have a lot of new GTLDs, and I said, I don't think I do. And then I started talking about all the extensions that I do own, and I realized, yeah, I guess I do have a lot of new GTLDs.
Yeah,
so
I have more. I was fortunate enough to get a lot of 3-number .xyz's.
Yeah.
They were $7. I was joking with Daniel last night that I forgot to register and renew them. I got a late thing saying you better go pay your $7. I look in 7 and I see they're selling for $1,000, $2,000, and here I was forgetting to pay my $7. So
exactly.
That's a good thing. That's a really good thing, and there'll be more. There's going to be people that witness that. There's going to be people that drop rates. There's going to be people that disappear. There's going to be people that say, I'm going to have to raise it because I need more money to survive. So they will be here to stay, and there will be some, but I'm going to say there's confusing with the plural and the singular.
Yes.
I'm curious to see how that plays out.
I want to see
because
that
you can't have both, and you can't brand both. So it's interesting, but it's good for the market.
Yes,
Anything new and any money is good for the market.
Another new trend is the Chinese market, which you've alluded to a couple times with the numbers and people asking you questions. And I want to know what your thoughts are on the market there, and where do you think that's going to go?
Well, I toot my horn all the time. In 2010, I was at the LA Domainers Convention where they get together, and I was giving talks on numerics. I gave 5 years ago. I was saying buy all the 4number.coms you can, buy the short ones you can, and I unfortunately sold many of those because it went up so fast. So I didn't make the millions. So people laugh at me and say, well, if you know so much, why do you not have those? But I continue to preach short domains always have value. The market in Asia like short, they like memorable, they're gamblers, they don't mind numbers, they don't speak English, so 8 means much more to them, or 4, any of those are universal languages, numbers. So I've always thought those would be worth more. But now we're getting into 7s, and now we're getting to 8s. I've got a little circle drawn of where I think it's going to stop as far as investment. I do think it continues to grow. I do think 5 numbers continue to grow. I think there's some patterns that people are missing that are short that are going to go up quite a bit. .cc I think it's going to be a top 3 or 4 extension in the world.
There's been a lot of growth definitely in .cc over the last year even.
They've adopted it. I used to sell it to country clubs and Catholic churches. That's who was buying my .cc's. I registered a lot of keywords. That was a mistake. I should have done more numbers and shorts, but I bought a lot of 4-letter .cc's just today. I'm continuing to buy them. Yeah,
I think that's a smart idea. I think we were at the domain conference in Florida, and I was running around, and so I missed a couple, 3 .cc's. There was, I think, a number and 2 letters and some other ones that were in there, and for $5 each. And I was like, I got to get these and missed them.
They're there. And .cc, before it was a Chinese, it's still so easy to type. If entering something into your computer is beneficial for being short, it doesn't get better than pressing the same key twice. That's always been my opinion.
I think that's an important thing, especially as mobile has become such a big even in other countries where mobile adoption is much higher than PC, you have to think about, if, like you said, the Chinese, our words don't mean much, but in Asia, if you have a couple characters and you have something short that you can use in your phone, it's going to be a lot more easy for people to
it just makes common sense to me, and I think that the world wants to get more specific, and they want to go right to the dot and talk about what that means, whether it's a car or a boat. But being generic is okay too. It's okay to brand on the other side. So there's a lot of things you can do, and .cc is just nothing. It's just short and easy. The left is where you're going to work. So I've always liked it. It was always cheap, and VeriSign didn't seem to really care. They just let it go, and it happened to catch on. So
yeah, that's true. It did, and I think that's a big surprise over the last year.
No, I was always saying, come on, let's put a couple $1 million and brand this thing, but I was being greedy because I own the name, so I want them to do it. But it caught on and it did its own thing. So again, I pat myself on the back. I should have made more money, but everybody feels good being right every once in a while.
That's true.
Yeah.
What do you think the domain industry is missing right now? What would you give it if you had a choice of anything you could just make happen?
Well, I really don't complain too much on a broad basis because I really do think that overall that we have a nice mix. I used to be a trader, and I always felt there weren't enough females involved. I think there could be more females in our industry. Overall, though, I think people forget how good we do have it, though. There's some great people in this. There's some great technologies. A lot of angles are being touched. There's a lot of money here. There's hundreds of millions of dollars being put in here. So I don't have a lot of complaints. I don't think there's one thing we're missing, because there's enough money and intelligence in our industry that if there is something, you're going to get talked about here and it's going to get filled. So I do think there's some individual platforms or individual companies that have some holes that are missing things, but again, that's not my company. But overall, nothing really gets me. That's what I love about this industry. Is holes get filled pretty quickly, not as fast as people think, but the people that have money are paying attention.
Is this your first NamesCon that you've come to?
No, I've been to all of them.
All of them?
Yeah,
okay.
And this is probably I started going to the conferences in 2009. I've been to all of them. I have not been to the Florida ones.
Okay. What do you most enjoy about NamesCon? About being
these kind of things, conversations, the people. I love listening to how people got in, who they are, how they make money. I could talk to 100 people and 90 of them make money in a different way in domaining.
Right.
It's just fantastic. I'm enthralled by that. That's why I'm here. I love making money. Money is just a way to count. I mean, I like making money in the process, and the actual cash itself is just a bonus. And listen to all these people, the enthusiasm, the young people, the older people. We got people here that are 70, their first NamesCon. That's fantastic. That's awesome. So,
what would you say to somebody who's watching who might be on the fence about coming to a conference or coming to NamesCon?
I would say that there are no excuses to come. You have to make the time. It is absolutely worth coming, because you will learn. It just takes one conversation to pay for the whole thing. There'll be one good thing that will pay for everything here. Even if it's a 10-minute conversation, you can pay for the whole NamesCon. And people that want to do something, make the time to do it. I tell this to my daughter and my wife. If you want to go with your friends out, you will change your whole schedule and you will end up going. But if she asks you to go to the in-laws, something comes up. So if you really want to know to go to NamesCon, and you should, you make the time to get out here. So I get kind of hard on people. There's no excuses. If you have a death in the family or a child or wife, I get that. But if you want to make money in the industry, you have to come to NamesCon. You have to get here and you have to shake hands.
Yeah, I agree that you don't know what kind of opportunities you're going to get until you get here. You have a lot of plans, you might have meetings that are set up which are beneficial, but there's going to be those conversations that you have where you meet somebody new, where you talk to somebody that you didn't expect, and that's going to more than pay for your trip.
Absolutely. And there's no doubt that the after 11 o'clock, after a couple beers, loose lips, get some really good conversations, some good information you might have not gotten at that meeting on the white couches here.
That's true. Do you have any general opinions about the domain name industry and where it's going, or where you think it should go?
I think it's going to go very well. I do think there'll be some new TLDs that are going to struggle financially. These are businesses. These are all small businesses. Most small businesses don't make it. So there will be those, and they will not be talked about as much as the real successful ones. But that's okay. That's part of what we do here. But there's lots of money. I love the doom and gloom of the Chinese market, of how things are good. Something's going to fail, something's going to pump and dump, and I love hearing it, because I've been hearing it for 5 years. And at some point, somebody's going to be right. I wrote one day that if somebody yells 10:30 every day, all day, eventually it's going to be 10:30, and then they're going to say, I was right. So eventually something's going to happen, but there's so much money to be made. If you use good financial management, invest in shorter names, don't get too crazy, there's a lot of money, and there's a good opportunity for part-time. You hear about part-time working at home. Domain is good for that, just to buy a little bit here and sell. So there's great opportunity. I think it's huge. I think it's fantastic, and everybody involved, if they do it right, in 5 years are going to be glad they're here.
Do you personally use Name Pros?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, these guys have to sometimes tell me to settle down a little bit. Somebody calls me a name, I cry. So yeah, absolutely, every day. If you want to hear what the general consensus of things are, you go to Name Pros. Name Pros now is the local community of people in domaining. So you can go through the post and see how people feel about certain things. If you want to see a new trend, there's going to be a post. What do you think about 5character.bizes? And there'll be 24 posts on opinions. That's great information. Absolutely. So yeah, I go there to get other people's opinions. I'm not looking for pats on the back. I know a lot of people say, I bought this, cheer me on. I don't really get into that part, but I love listening to people's opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a great benefit of going there myself, to just hear what people are thinking about in the industry, what things might be changing, like you said, and just to get feedback from people. It's good to put something out there, we do changes on the website or things like that on GoDaddy, it's great to get instant feedback from people. If they don't like it, that's great. You get to hear why. You get to try and fix it, and I think that interaction is important.
Yeah, it's a great sounding board for anything. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think is the most important thing that you get out of NamePros?
Like I said, I think it represents the domain community. So I think that it's an honest opinion. Yes, there's individuals in there that are all kinds of opinions, intelligent, some crazy. I love it. It's a great mix of people. I think it's a sounding board. It gives people a voice. The most important thing that people need is a voice, and if you take their voice away from them, they get really upset. Like if they love going there and posting and talking. So that voice for the industry is everything to those guys. They're addicted. You can look at the number of posts for some of these guys. They'll have 30 posts a day. That they love it. So I think that's the most important, is to give everybody a voice. Yes, it's great to have domains, but as far as discussion, it's the place to go and discuss, and we need that.
Yeah, I really think it's important. One of the things that I really like is the variety of people that are going to post on there. So you can ask for some feedback, and it might be great for someone who's in your own locality,
Absolutely.
right? But then you hear from perspective somebody on the other side of the country or somebody on the other side of the world, and it might not be as good for them.
Yeah, it's showing that there's Chinese involvement, and the administrators at NamePro say, hey, we've got some great Chinese people. Let's get together so maybe you can help me out. And the person in India can tell his viewpoint. So you get all these different nationalities talking about how domaining is in their country. So it's again a great multicultural viewpoint.
What 2 pieces of advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out in the industry? Somebody who wants to invest in names. Pretty
typical. I've said it, whether it's stock market or domain investing. And the first is to learn and read. Data is everything. We're fortunate that we have places that keep the tally, that keep the sales. Name bio and LLL sales, all these places study that. Those numbers are real for the most part. I'm sure there's some that aren't, but for the most part, those are real numbers. That's what the sales were. That's the price that has been paid for that domain. Keep that information and then start small. Just buy some things. Don't get crazy. I know a couple guys that are addicted here. They'll buy 1,000 domains. Keep it small and then just work your way. Work your way into it, build your portfolio, don't jump into it too fast. But that's the same with the stock market. Just don't get over your head. But there is data out there. There's real data. And the other thing I'll say in the data is, just because this sold for it doesn't mean your one-off domain is the same value. I hear that all the time. If that sold for that, then mine must be worth. Keep it all in a grain of salt. But yeah, I would definitely do that. Learn. But that's the information everybody gives, but it stands true.
Yeah, and thanks for taking the time to be able to share your insight. I think it's important for everybody to learn. Like you said, even somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, I still learn a lot. So it's been great.
I don't think there's anybody here that has stopped learning. Once you stop listening and learning, you might as well just go back home.
Exactly.
All right.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.